Good evening, everybody, and welcome, and thank you for braving the weather and joining us tonight for the first of what we hope is going to be many Monday night shiurim lecture series for our Modian Eilat Shachar Modian English group, and we're very, very excited to be kicking off the program as we did, I think, 2 years ago with Rabbi Katz. He was here just after the war had started. And when I was thinking of something to say this evening, I was reminded of something that the Netivot Shalom brings, who I understand is a relative of your family.
Yeah.
Correct? And he brings a question of the Ramban. The Ramban asks, why did Hashem have to show Moshe the signs at the burning bush of the matzah turning into a snake, his hand turning to a tzorat and going back, and the burning bush itself? Why did he have to show it to him? He was saying they should have been done just to be shown to the people, the Klal Yisrael in Mitzrayim. And the Netivot Shalom answers with a very, very powerful message. That the signs were to show Moshe Rabbeinu that no matter at what level the nation has sunk to, there's always a way back. That if a matzah can either be something to build with, or it can become a snake, something to destroy with. Your hand will always be something that's alive, or it will be with tzorat and it will be dead. But what about the burning bush? The burning bush itself, the fire, Hashem tells Moshe, take off your shoes because this ground is holy. What was holy about the ground? The ground was holy because the fire was not consuming the bush, which is representative of the nation of Israel. And the reason it was not doing that, the fire was not consuming the bush, was because that we have within us the fire of Hashem. Every single Jew has in them the fire of Hashem. And that fire can never be put out, and it can never be consumed by another fire. And he refers to us as the Kodesh Kadoshim, that we are the holy of holies. The Jews are the holy of holies because of the fact that we have something of Hashem in us. And that fire will overcome anything that is thrown at us. And in introducing Rabbi Katz, he was part of the group that were evicted from Gush Katif in 2005. His yeshiva in Sderot was directly affected by the invasion of Hamas on October the 7th. And every time something like that has happened, he's got up bigger and stronger and better and gone even further than he was before, epitomizing that fire of what is that Hashem has given us and has put into us. So with that in mind, I'd like to call on Rabbi Katz to address us.
Thank you very much. So thank you for coming out, braving the weather. Hopefully I'll finish before it gets really worse. But I was thinking also, Mike jokingly asked, has anything changed since the last time I've been here? So I just have to look at the signs here, the names here. I think these last 2 years hopefully have taught us all lessons. What to learn from. I think we have to learn from everything that happens, so much more so when what has happened these last 2 years, not only here in our region, around the world, to open up our eyes to see Hashem speaking to us. When Mike asked me to speak, so I sent him a topic, and then he sent me back that was the topic I spoke about 2 years ago. So I said to Mike, I don't think they remember, but I mean, give them credit if they do. So I thank Mike because something a little different, a slightly different topic, than 2 years ago. Things also that I've learned in these 2 years. I think definitely these 2 years they've affected me. I just told Mike before that there hasn't been a week that I have at least 2-3 groups coming down to Sderot and the Gaza envelope and taking them around and sharing with them the stories, the tragedies, the miracles, the Gevura. And I told Mike, I invite you again to come down. I mean, the amount of people that still are coming down, that you see buses upon buses every day in Sderot, it's unbelievable, remarkable. And not only from Chutz La'aretz, I'm talking about also Israelis coming down. So I always say, if there's a silver lining, whatever happened, is that the tourism in Sderot has really boomed. And thank God it's a good boom, unlike the other booms that we've had throughout the 25 years in Sderot. Baruch Hashem, it's been quiet. I will say something that, talking about miracles, that since we last spoke, the population in Sderot has grown for 3,000 people. It's over 40,000 people now in Sderot, which is unbelievable. Only Am Yisrael, during a war, could come down and move to a place on the border. But that's our greatness. That's who we are. That's what's so special. And tonight I want to talk about that specialty, but from an angle of a little bit what it obligates us to do. And we know that there is no coincidence in the Torah. When the Torah chooses its words, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose his words, Lashon HaKodesh, okay, there's no coincidence. If the same word, the same root appears in several places, there must be a connection between the two. In general, also last time I spoke, the source sheet in Hebrew, that's another thing which a little bit we looked into. God willing, we don't know yet what's going to happen. So the yeshiva in Sderot is planning to opening up in Elul, in 9 months from now, an overseas program for boys overseas. That until now, maybe the parents were too scared to send their boys to Sderot. Now, thank God that Baruch Hashem, the army, and we did good work there, so it's been quiet. So we're hoping we get a few boys. But what we're telling the boys, one of the things that we want them to be aware of is that we want them to come to a place, and we're going to have shiurim, at least majority of them, in Hebrew. In Hebrew. And then that made us a little bit, the Rosh Yeshiva and myself, looking into just Hebrew. And we saw some remarkable things that he didn't even know. I mean, forget me. Even he didn't even, the Rosh Yeshiva didn't even know. And one of the things which stuck out, Rabbi Akiva Eger, one of the giants of European Jewry. So he talks about the speaking Hebrew, and he says an unbelievable statement. He says, listen, I don't understand. He says, all the nations in the world, they have a language which is so precious to them. Their language is precious to them. And they only want to speak that language. And Dafka Am Yisrael, we went away from our language. We don't speak Lashon, we don't speak Hebrew. Now he's talking in Europe then, which probably he felt it very much. He says, how could that be? That us of all the nations which have the Lashon HaKodesh, we stopped speaking Hebrew. He says a language for a people. We also know, connected to these Parashiyot HaShavua, that one of the reasons the Midrash tells us that Am Yisrael was zochet to be redeemed was that they didn't change their language. They kept on speaking Hebrew, because when a nation has a language and keeps speaking that language, that prevents it from assimilation, that shows that its uniqueness. So that's why I'm throwing that out to you about how important it is to really cherish our language. It's hard maybe, but that's not a reason to stay away from it. So a little bit of Ivrit tonight also, hopefully will be okay. I mean, I think it's very, very, very important. And tonight is an example, because the word, when I gave Mike the topic, so it's how to translate it. I said, that's the problem here. That's the whole shiur about how to translate it. Okay, because if you open up Art Scroll, and this word is a very special word. Beginning of this week's parasha, we're going to read this Shabbos, Amir Tashem. So we all know the 4 Lashonot HaGeula. I don't want to scare here any of the women. That Pesach is just a little more than 2.5 months away. But that's the way the calendar works. And we all know the 4 kosot that we drink at the Seder are parallel. Basically, there's a hint for the 4 Lashonot HaGeula, the 4 terms of the geula that the Torah uses. And then there's a fifth one that some people say that's Koshel Eliyahu Hanavi at the Seder. And that's the pasuk in front of you, pasuk Chet. Ve'veiti etchem el haaretz. That's basically the future. I will bring you to the land. Asher nasati et yadi lateit ota la'Avraham litzchak liYaakov, that I promised. I raised my hand. I promised. Hashem says to give it to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. V'natati ota lachem morasha ani Hashem, and I will give it to you as a morasha. Okay, deliberately I'm not translating here. Okay, as a morasha. There's only twice in the Torah that this word appears as is, as morasha. The word Yerusha appears, Yerusha, which means inheritance. But morasha appears twice. And the second time is all the way at the end of the Chumash, in Zot HaBracha. We all know this, we read it on Simchas Torah, a pasuk that it says it's supposed to be the first pasuk you basically teach your child. Torah tziva lanu Moshe, morasha Kilat Yaakov. Same word as in our parsha regarding Eretz Yisrael. So there's two times in the Torah that the Torah uses the same word, Torah and Eretz Yisrael. If the Torah uses the same word in both places, there has to be a connection. There has to be a connection between the two. And that's what I want to try to do tonight, to learn together to see what that connection is. But to make things a little bit more complicated, so let's say for the meantime, because we're going to see, you can't go away. That's why I would say that the Hebrew language is so beautiful that every word is connected. The root of a word, all those words that have the same root, there's some connection between them. So Morasha has to have the same connotation as Yerusha, but we'll see in this, hopefully tonight, maybe there's slight differences. The bottom line is, let's translate it now as, I will give it to you as an inheritance. But then you understand, if you look back to source number 1, so there's a contradiction within the pasuk, because it says, "V'natati ota lachem morasha." Now, what's natati mean? What's latet? What's a matana? A gift. Now, so it says Hashem has to decide. Either it's a gift or it's inheritance. That's not the same. Okay? A gift could be anyone giving a gift to anyone. There's something, no connection between the two people whatsoever. I give a matana. I give it to you. Yerusha, inheritance, is a lot more stronger. There's a connection, usually biologically, between a parent and a child. That's Yerusha. So the Torah basically is saying here, on one hand, Eretz Yisrael is being given as a gift, but at the same time, it's saying it's inheritance. That's another question. Now, regarding the Torah, you have the same issue. Moshe Rabbeinu says at the end of the Torah that it's a Morasha. The Torah is a Morasha for us. But then, there are a few places. I chose one pasuk that the Torah is considered, again, a matana, something we say in davening. We put back the Sefer Kilekach Tov, natati lachem, Torati al ta'azovu. I gave you a good acquisition. Again, I gave you the Torah. I gifted you the Torah. So again, it's a gift or it's inheritance. There has to be some type of decision here to decide what exactly the definition is of these two major parts of our lives. Torah and Eretz Yisrael, we know that, together with Am Yisrael, that's the famous triangle. There's Am Yisrael, Torah Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael. So, this is not my question. This is really source number 4, the Yerushalmi, in Masechet Bava Batra, brings down this question. Okay? Rabbi Yochanan Meitiv. Rabbi Yochanan asked the question that we basically asked. Ve'veiti etchem el eretz avotechem. So it's not exactly the same, the quote. So it says, but that's the pasuk we're talking about. Imatana, if it's a matana, lama Yerusha. So he asks it not as it's a contradiction, more as why do you need, if he gave it as a gift, why does he need to inherit it to us? Vim Yerusha, if it's an inheritance, lama always have to give it to us as a gift. So what's the answer? אלא מאחר שניתנה להם, אלא מאחר שנתנה להן לשום מתנה, חזר ונתנה להם לשום ירושה. Okay, so what does he answer? Hashem gave the Torah, gave Eretz Yisrael, as a present, and then he gave it again as inheritance. But that's the question, so why? What does the inheritance add to the gift that the gift didn't have? He gave it, Baruch Hashem, he gave it to us. Eretz Yisrael, he gave it to us. So what Rabbi Yochanan, when he answers that, the Torah is telling us that he didn't only give it to us as a matan, he gave it to us as a Yerusha as well. That's a little to understand what that means. Okay? And that's about Eretz Yisrael. But tonight I want to show you that anything we say about one of them, since they have the same word, so what's that called when you have a similar word in each place in the Torah, and you want to learn one from the other? A Gezeira Shava, that's what's one of the ways of learning. You have one word here in place A, one word in B. What's true in A is true in B. So I just want to try to show you tonight that what's true with the Torah is true in Eretz Yisrael. So the first point we have here to make is this idea of that the Yerusha adds something to the Matana regarding Eretz Yisrael. It must be the same regarding Torah. Now we'll see about Torah, it gets a little even more complicated. But before we leave the Yerushalmi, I want to show you the next opinion. Amar Rabbi Oshaya. This is very interesting now. Kol makom, anywhere that it says. Now, it's not a lot of places, but the Rabbi Oshaya says anywhere it says Morasha. This is in Aramaic now. Lashon diha. Diha is really, it's an Aramaic word, but also the Hebrew has taken it. We say in Hebrew, when you want to say a color has faded, you say hatzeva daha. Dalet hey hey. The color has faded, became weaker. So diha is, Rabbi Yoshai says, any place it says Morasha, it's basically meaning it's something weak. That means here he is saying there's a difference between Yerusha and Morasha. Morasha, the word Morasha, Rabbi Yoshaya claims, it's a little weaker version of the Yerusha, something weak. Okay, now that he's talking about Eretz Yisrael. We'll get to that weak in a second. But then they ask, how can you say that Morasha is weak? Vaktiv Morasha Kilat Yaakov. The Torah says about it also Morasha. What's weak about that? That's the pasuk we all say that the Torah is our inheritance. What's weak about that? Says Rabbi Yoshai, no. You have to understand about Torah. Amar, he said, late dia sugya mine. There he says, there is nothing weaker than the Torah. Min dulihi hu mishkach kula. He says, what basically if I translate it loosely, until a person learns it and works on it, it's very weak. In other words, at the beginning, the Torah is something very weak, very, very hard, very, very difficult to understand. That's the honest truth. They don't want to sell you something which is not true. The Torah at the beginning for everyone is very hard, very weak. But the more you learn, it becomes stronger and stronger. And that's what the Torah wanted. That's what Yoshaya is telling us here, that the Torah wanted to teach us that yeah, it's going to be hard when you start learning Torah. It's going to be weak. But you keep at it, you'll get it, and in Mirz Hashem, you'll get stronger and stronger. But at the beginning, it's weak. Okay, that's about Torah. And think now, as we go on to this year, think also about Eretz Yisrael. But I want to show you something else about Torah, this idea of Morasha and Yerusha. Okay? A Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. So the first part of the Mishnah, I quoted the whole Mishnah here. From Pirkei Avos, you learn so many things. So Rabbi Yossi says, "Yihi mamon chavercha, chavercha kashocha." Your friend's money should be as precious to you as your own. I mean, don't make sure you care about your friend's possessions. Just okay. That's the first. Then it says the following: "Vatkein atzmacha lilmod Torah." Prepare yourself to learn Torah. She'ena Yerusha lecha, because Torah is not an inheritance for you. So Mishnah Pirkei Avos is basically saying you have to prepare yourself to learn Torah. You have to work to learn Torah because it's not an inheritance. Now, what should be the first question? Everyone should yell. How can you say it's not an inheritance, but it says in the Torah, Torah Tzvilanu Moshe, Morasha Kilat Yaakov. So what is Rabbi Yossi telling us? That the Torah is not Yerusha, but it says in the Torah it is Yerusha. Now, you want to use maybe that here he says Yerusha, and we know it doesn't say Yerusha, it says Morasha, and then use that it's weak. Okay, that could be possible answer. That there's a difference. It's not Yerusha, it's Morasha. And you saw the difference, the possible difference between Morasha, which is a weaker version. But I want to show you source number 6. Another Hasidic giant, the Sfat Emet, the Gur dynasty. So he speaks about this Mishnah from another angle. Because he says, there's a play on words here also. When it says Torah Tzilano Moshe Morasha Kilat Yaakov, the word Morasha, the Chazal, there's a midrash that teaches us it sounds like another word in Hebrew. And what's that word in Hebrew? Me'orasa. We know the shin and the samich and the sin all interchange. And the aleph usually doesn't bother me a lot of times. The aleph is in the word. So me'orasa. Now what does me'orasa mean? What does irusin? Engaged, right. Right. So it says Chazal, the Gemara says it really. Don't read it as morasha, but me'orasa. A beautiful thing. That before we go on, think about it. That the Torah is not an inheritance. The Torah is our wife. The Torah is our spouse. Don't say morasha, but it's ma'orasa. That's the connection we have with the Torah. Okay, that's the Gemara. Says the Sfat Emet, he wants to explain a little bit. What's the Gemara? What is the Gemara trying to teach us? V'zeh fresh. So also here it bothered the idea of the Mishnah that says it's not a Yerusha, so he says, no, but if you learn that what it says in the Torah, Morasha, it's not Morasha, but it's Ma'orasa, there's a big difference. Why? Ki Yerusha, let's take now, so the Sfat Emes now explains very nicely, what is the basic difference between an inheritance and a gift. Ki Yerusha, or a gift or engagement more. Hi bali yagia. What is an inheritance? Look, a person, after 120, they die. And then the children or the relatives get something that the person left. They didn't have to work anything. They didn't have to do anything to get that. It fell in their laps, like we say. So Yerusha is without yagia, is without at all working for it. Rak nachala, it's a inheritance, it's a portion. She'en la hefsek, a continuous portion that you get as an inheritance from a relative. That's the way it works. You don't have to work for it. It happens. Avo me'orasa. But if we're learning the Gemara that what it says here is not morasha, but a play on words, morasa, to be engaged to a spouse, what does it take to be engaged? He hits karvut, that's getting closer. Sheba, how does that closeness happen? Ayidei pulo ta'adam vigiato. That a person has to work for. You don't get engaged. Wake up and you're engaged. You have to work on a relationship. You have to do something. Both parties have to do something. But you have to do something. It doesn't happen, just fall on your lap. You want to be engaged to someone, you want to have a spouse, you want to get married, you have to do something. Says the Sfat Emet, that's exactly what the Chazal were trying to teach us here. The Gemara trying to teach us here. That Torah doesn't just fall on your lap. You have to work for it. That's what we call Yegia Batorah. A person has to really toil over the Torah. V'zeh ne'emar l'chol prat. Now the Sfat Emes comes to ask the question, but it says, the Mishnah says it's not a Yerusha, but it says, so that he says, I'll show you there's no contradiction. Okay? For an individual, the prat, every individual has to learn Torah if they want to know the Torah. Because for every individual, it's not an inheritance. There they have to work on it like a spouse. They have to, if they want to learn the Torah, they want to understand the Torah, they have to get close to the Torah, they have to work on it. Like any relationship. Okay? That's what the Mishnah says. Hatken atzmacha. Prepare yourself, l'motar, because for you, it's not a Yerusha. Says the Sfat Emet, but the Torah says Morasha. Now, okay, the Chazal, that Morasha, that's very nice, but it says Morasha. Avol Klalut Yisrael ne'amar Morasha Kilat Yaakov. But for Am Yisrael as a whole, then it's an inheritance. In other words, there are two things here. Am Yisrael received the Torah as a nation, as a whole, at Har Sinai. For them, it's inheritance. Now, and I'll share with you in a second a little bit more what that means. So for Am Yisrael and the Torah, Am Yisrael got it. From generation to generation, the Torah is passed as a nation. But when we speak to every individual, you want to learn the Torah, you want to understand the Torah, you want to have a relationship with the Torah, that you have to work on. That you have to work on. Now he says, so Atem ends off, don't get desperate and don't get frustrated, because Afal Piken, even so, but once a person considers himself part of Am Yisrael, means there are two parts here. You want to get the inheritance, make sure you feel part of Am Yisrael. Make sure you're part of Am Yisrael. That's one. But as an individual, you want to get a nice relationship with the Torah, you're going to have to work on that. So you always have what to fall back on. Don't think, but a person, he can't, whatever, doesn't have the ability, okay, he feels that it's frustrating. So you always know, don't think you're not part of this unbelievable thing, because as long as you're Am Yisrael, you have that, it's yours. You're part of Am Yisrael, you're part of the Torah. But when the Mishnah Perkei Avos is giving you advice, like all those Mishnahs, it's saying, but if you want to have a relationship with the Torah, you have to keep on working your entire life with that Torah. Yes, you have that share like every other Jew has that share of the Torah as an Am, as a people, as the nation. But you yourself, you want to get a closer relationship, you have to work and toil. So that's what, so here we see a little bit more of the play in the words here. Now we have another thing. We have Morasha, we have Morasha, and we have the Yerusha. So the Mishnah Perkei Avos is correct. For us, for individuals, it's not. That's why it says, yeah, what's the Mishnah say? Ena Yerusha lecha, to you as an individual, singular. As for the Am, it's a Morasha. For the Am, it was, of course, it inherits. Now I'll tell you more than that. And we're going to quote him at the end. This is a sefer which is translated into English, Ema Barim Smecha. Very recommended book. We're going to see at the end, he wrote another sefer less known. So Rav Teichtel is in the Holocaust. He was killed in the Holocaust. He wrote the sefer in the Holocaust from basically in hiding. In this sefer, he basically talks about how he changed his views. At that time when he was in Europe, there was, for lack of a better word, the more Haredi Hashkafa, which said, no, don't go to Eretz Yisrael right now. It's not time yet. Okay. And they had a whole problem with who was building the state at the time. And he basically says how he changed his mind and saw that they're not right. And he writes the whole book about trying to convince people how important it is to go to Eretz Yisrael. We're going to use that in a minute. But he also talks about this Morasha. And he explains about this inheritance of the Torah. If we think about it, how do we convince people that the Torah, we received the Torah, that the Torah is ours? I mean, one of the animamins we know, one of the animamins we say is that the Torah came from Moshe and we got the Torah from. So he basically has a few pages that he says that our claim to Torah is only that, it's inheritance. And he says that is the biggest proof, because how in the world could it be that millions of people, he says his whole thing is that even if you have two people, two witnesses who say the same exact thing, and they will tell you that they were at this thing called Ma'amad Har Sinai, and they received the Torah, and they would say the exact same thing, what happened there, you would believe them. Because if they're not, they can't make that stuff up. If the two witnesses come and say, he says, but it's not two people, it's millions of people that said that they were there and they saw it, and that's gone down from generation to generation. That's what we call Masorah, that's called tradition. He says, that's the biggest proof that we got the Torah. There isn't any other religion like that has something that has been brought down from generation to generation. People have said what they saw, what happened there. That's only Am Yisrael. That's only the Torah. That's the biggest proof. That's why we say Morasha, that's Kilat Yaakov, that's the inheritance. When he talks about an inheritance for Am Yisrael, that's what makes it the inheritance, how strong it is. No one could deny it. Because logically, how could something, if it wasn't true, so it would have been denied, it wouldn't have kept on going. But the fact that from generation to generation, people have said this is what happened at Har Sinai. We received the Torah. And again, not 2, not 10, not 1,000, millions of people said that. It's impossible to make something like that. That every one of those people say the same thing, impossible. That's the Yerusha that we get from generation to generation about the Torah. That's the Yerusha. And that's why we believe. And when people say, prove it, you don't need more proof than that the fact that we're here learning the same Torah that was learned hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, that is the biggest proof. There is no other proof like that, because you can't make something like that up. That the same things is being learned from generation to generation, and saying the same thing doesn't get made up. Okay, there are people still stubborn who will try to say that, but we know that's very hard to deny when you have so many people, so much over so long a time, saying the same thing. Now turn over the page. So I think we've established that the Torah, however you want to explain it, a Morasha, if Morasha is not the same thing as Yerusha, it's a little weak. We learned a few things. Number one, that for an individual, it's hard at the beginning. Like the Yerushalmi said, it's not easy. You have to work on yourself, but you'll get there. Number two, but for Klal Yisrael, for Am Yisrael, it's Yerusha. They inherited it. It's theirs. They got it back from Moshe Rabbeinu at Har Sinai. Can't take it away from them. That's the way it is. Then we have also the Morasha, that when a person works on his relationship, just like he works with his spouse, so then you'll get there. You'll have that relationship as long as you're willing to put in the time to work. So that's about the Torah. That's the pasuk in Mizot HaBracha. Now let's go back to our parsha about Eretz Yisrael. Now we could say everything that I just said about the Torah now, we could say about Eretz Yisrael. Let's see. Number one, I think everyone here will agree, and that's what Rav Tachtel speaks about also, and we'll see that we all know, as a people, we received Eretz Yisrael. When I say as a people, Avram Avinu was the first one that Hashem promised him, I will give you and your children this land. So as a people, this is our land. It's an inheritance from Avram all the way down. And again, even those religions that don't like us, to say the least, if they believe in what says, and most of them do believe what it says in the Old Testament, it says there in the Old Testament that Eretz Yisrael was given to Avram. It doesn't only say that. It says something else. Now, again, those that believe in them, and a lot of them believe in the Old Testament. It doesn't only say it was given to Avram. It also says something else, which people forget this part. It says also that what happened in the next generation, Hagar and Ishmael were thrown out of the house. They had a chance to receive it also. Ishmael was Avram's son. But the minute that Ishmael went off the derech, and he wasn't part of it anymore, and Sarah sees that, they're out of it. They're not part of this anymore. Now you can't just pick and choose. If that's what says in the Torah, so that says there that Avram received Eretz Yisrael and he passed it on to Yitzchak. But there was Ishmael also, what the Arabs say. Yeah, but you know the story here, that part you took out of the, Ishmael was removed. He's not anymore part of it. He messed up. They had a chance. They can't ever say that they didn't have a chance. There was no racism here at the beginning. You had a fair chance. The Ishmael chose his ways. The minute he chose his ways, Yitzchak becomes Avram's sole heir. Now, we do learn something very important from this story. We don't always like to say it, but it's true. In order for us to have Eretz Yisrael as an inheritance, we have to act in the ways of Avram Avinu. So it's interesting. It's an inheritance, but it's an inheritance that's dependent, and it's not so far-fetched. How many stories do we hear about parents, again, when they want to inherit something to their children, on condition that the children stay within the derech, what the parents set in the household. If the kids go off the derech, in a way, they're not part of the family anymore. So this is exactly what was here. Yeah, Eretz Yisrael was an inheritance. It was a Yerusha. But you have to, on this Yerusha, it was dependent on the behavior. You want to behave like Avram and Yitzchak, you'll receive Eretz Yisrael. Ishmael, out of the picture. So it's a Yerusha based on the fact that you have to behave yourself. Now we're going to see this. Now, if that's the case, what am I saying more or less is that Eretz Yisrael is dependent on the Torah. Or you cannot get Eretz Yisrael without keeping the Derech HaTorah, because it started from Avraham Avinu. So the Torah is a prerequisite to receive Eretz Yisrael. No Torah, you don't have the right to be here anymore. But you'll say, but it's inheritance, I can do. No, you have to behave according to the Torah. That's how it was given from Avram to Yitzchak. You behave like the Torah, and so now both things, and that's why we said the words in both cases, Morasha, by the Torah and Eretz Yisrael, that's exactly the point. One has to be intertwined with the other. Saying the Torah intertwined with Eretz Yisrael. They have to be together. There's no such thing as just getting Eretz Yisrael without the Torah. Now we'll prove it. Source number 7, okay? And this is Rav Teichel does a lot of this as well. So for very early on, before they're about to enter Eretz Yisrael for the first time, Am Yisrael, in the Midbar. So let's read together. First source number 7. Moshe lechovav ben Yeroham Midiani chote Moshe. Who's Chovav? Another name for Chovav. Who is Moshe's father-in-law? Yitro. So he tells Yitro, no siman achnu lamakom. We're about to go into the place. Asher amar Hashem oto etein lechem. That Hashem said He's going to give it to us, i.e., Eretz Yisrael. Lecha yitana. So come with us. Veitan lech, and we'll do good for you. Ki Hashem diber tov Yisrael. Hashem spoke good on Yisrael. A few psukim later. So what leads the way? They're about to enter. This is before the sin of the spies. If everything would have gone as planned, they would have entered the land. The spies messed it up. But this is before the spies. And what does it say? It's a pasuk that we say every time we take out the Torah today. So what leads the way into Eretz Yisrael? The Aron. The way into Eretz Yisrael is led by Torah. You cannot enter Eretz Yisrael without that Torah. The Torah has to lead the way. The Aron goes first. The Aron with the Torah in it goes first. That's you don't need any more proof than that's how it's going to be. Torah into Eretz Yisrael. Torah allows you to go into Eretz Yisrael. Okay, let's skip now to the actual entrance. So the sin of the spies happened. 40 years they're in the desert. Thank God. Yoshua then, Moshe dies unfortunately. Yoshua then takes the reins. He's now the leader. Now let's see these first two psukim in Sefer Yoshua. Okay? It's very interesting. You'll see now something remarkable. Source number 8. After Moshe Rabbeinu dies. Hashem says to Yoshua, Misharet Moshe, the servant of Moshe, saying, Moshe avdi met, Moshe my servant has died, va'ata, now, kum avor et hayarden hazeh, now it's time to cross the Jordan, ata v'chol am hazeh, you and the whole people, el haaretz, to the land, asher anochi noten lebnei Yisrael, I'm giving to Bnei Yisrael. Now listen to these next few psukim. Chazak ve'amatz, be strong, be courageous. Ki ata tanchil et am hazeh, et haaretz asher nishbati lavotam latet lehem. This is Hashem now giving Yoshua a pep talk. You have to be strong and courageous because you will be the one to give the land over that I promised to give their forefathers. That's Pasuk Vav. Pasuk Zayin. Rak chazak ve'ematz. Rak chazak ve'ematz mod. That rak. What does rak mean? Only. So, rak, again, same words. Chazak ve'ematz ma'od. I want you to compare Pasuk Vav and Zayin. Pasuk Vav, chazak ve'ematz. Pasuk Zayin, rak chazak ve'ematz ma'od. Here already we have a rak and a ma'od. But what does this chazak ve'ematz go on now? Lishmor la'asod kechol haTorah, to keep the Torah. Asher tzivcha Moshe avdi, that Moshe my servant commanded you. Al tasur many don't stray from it right or left. Leman taskil, in order that you be successful. B'chol asher telech. So this pasuk speaks about the Torah. Pasuk Chet, lo yamush sefer adozam picha. Now he says this sefer Torah will never leave your mouth. V'gita bo yomam v'layla. You will learn it day and night. Leman tishmor la'asod, in all that you'll be careful to do. Kechol ha'katubo, everything that's written in it. Ki az tatzliach et rochecha v'taskib. Because only then you'll be successful. And then Pasuk Tet, Like I said, the sandwich now is complete. Halot tziviticha, I already command you. Chazak ve'amatz, the third time. Al ta'arot tzvatecha, don't be fearful. Ki imcha Hashem elokecha, Hashem will be with you b'chol asher tech, wherever you go. These psukim start off the Sefer of Yoshua. And it's very clear here what Hashem is doing. Hashem is laying down the ground rules. So first he says, and it's like I said, I didn't use the word sandwich. Pasuk Vav and Tet, Chazak ve'amatz. Chazak ve'amatz are powerful words. Okay, how many times have we heard that? How many times have, these 2 years, a lot of times before the soldiers went into Gaza or to Lebanon, usually it was the Rav of the unit or even the commander of the unit quoting these psukim. Okay, be strong, be courageous. So the first pasuk and the last pasuk talk about be strong and courageous in conquering the land. You're going to have to fight a war. This is fighting. Okay, the desert was full of the miracles. No fighting in the desert. You had the clouds. Eretz Yisrael is a different story. You have to conquer, you have to fight. But then in the middle pasuk, same words, but not referring to conquering Eretz Yisrael, but referring to learning Torah. You have to also there be strong and courageous to make sure you keep the Torah. So what do you see? That already Hashem is telling Yoshua, this is the way it's going to work. This is the equation. Now, not only that, the Torah part, it says, first of all, the word ma'od is used. What does ma'od mean? Very, and rak. Now, rak usually comes to say, to exclude something, to limit something. And that's what he's doing here. He's saying, in order for Pasuk Vav and Tet to come true, you want to be able to succeed in conquering the land only if you learn Torah. Only if you learn Torah. Only if you keep the Torah, you'll be able to conquer the land and keep the land. That's exactly why that rock is in the middle there. That's a condition. You want to get Eretz Yisrael, that's fine. But there's a condition. Rak chazak ve'ematz mod lishmor lasot kechol Torah. That's why the rock is there. This is a condition, a prerequisite, like we said before. To get the land, you need the Torah. Very, very important. Beginning of their whole entering the land. Now you'll see source number 9, another beautiful midrash. Already, that's in midrash Tanchuma. Okay, and here right off the bat, so there the Torah says the following sentence, the following pasuk: Ki achrit Hashem elokecha. When Hashem will cut off, Hashem your God will cut off the enemies. Now again, when shows us that it might happen, it might not happen. When it will happen. So says the Midrash, why did Moshe say it that way? So says the Midrash, Mao ki achrit, why the ki achrit? When? Al tznayu, because when will Hashem destroy the enemies? Im yishmru et Torah, if they keep the Torah, yikansu la'aretz, then they'll be able to enter Eretz Yisrael. And that's what he says. He proves that the word ki always means a condition. And if I skip a little bit to the middle of the Midrash, Afkan, here's 2. Hitna, again, the word keeps on repeating itself. Hitna comes from the word tnai, condition. Hashem conditioned. Sheino machrit et hagoyim. He will not destroy the nations living in the land then. Ela amenat shishmur et, only if they keep the Torah. And then says the Midrash, beautiful words here. Chaviva Eretz Yisrael. How precious is the land of Israel. Shebachar ba kadosh baruch hu, that Hashem chose that land to be His land. Atamotzei, this is what you find. K'shebara ha'olam, when Hashem created the world, chilek haratzot l'sarei homot. He divided the whole world and gave it to certain people. I say this, that Trump might think he's God now because he goes to all the places now. Okay, but there's only one HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He decides who gets which land. Okay, what's happening in the world today is a little bit of mishugas, but that's just a side point. Hashem decided who gets every land, and He chose Eretz Yisrael for us. Minayin sheken, says Moshe Amar, behanchel elyon goyim. That's a pasuk in Hazinu. When Hashem started dishing out the world, He gave Eretz Yisrael. Uvachar lechalko Yisrael. Now Hashem chose a land, and He chose a people. Where is people? Ki chelek Hashem amo. Yaakov Chamachto. Hashem's chelik, Hashem's portion is us. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the last line. Yavo Yisrael shabo lechelki. Let Am Yisrael come, that they're mine, they're my share. V'yinchalu et haaretz, and let them inherit the land. Sheba lechelki, that I also kept for myself. My people to my land, but dependent on keeping my Torah. Very simple thing. And again, the Morasha here, the two items connected, the Morasha. And if I a little bit add on what I said before, we said by the Torah that you have to work on it. I think we'll all agree that we all know that Eretz Yisrael, again, the same thing that we said about Torah. It's ours. But if you want to live here, for every individual wants to be here, there's trials and tribulations. There's difficulties. There's a price. Here, even for Am Yisrael, there's a price. And we know that price. These 2 years showed us that price. And the last source here is a sefer called Mishneh Sachir, written by Rav Teichtel, a less known sefer on the Parshot HaShavua. And this piece here, that piece also appears in his sefer. But I want to read his words here, and he quotes here, but his words here are beautiful. It says like this. So Rav Teichtel basically says, after a long presentation of showing this whole idea of Torah to Israel, he says, Ki Torah ve'Eretz Yisrael b'dibur echad ne'amru. It's like we say on Kabbalah Shabbos, Shamar v'Zochar b'dibur echad. Eretz Yisrael, Torah Yisrael, it's as if they were said in the same time. Ve'heim, and he calls them in Aramaic, Trei Reyin, two friends, Delomit Parshin, that can't separate from each other. Now he quotes another giant. Those of you who have heard of the Rav Moshe Cordovero. Rav Moshe Cordovero was in Tzfat, student of the Shulchan Aruch, big Kabbalah. So the Maharak, Rav Moshe Cordovero. So he quotes him saying the following: Noda ki Eretz Yisrael la kurva v'yachas. Eretz Yisrael has relationship in Torah with the Torah. Ki yachas hachayut im alev. He compares the Eretz Yisrael's relationship with the Torah as a relationship with life to the heart. He explains. Ki chayim el ha'olam hu Torah. We know ki hem chayenu. The true life we know in this world is the Torah. Kamro v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Another pasuk. Now, where, as humans, where is the center of the life in our body? Umishkan ha'chayut v'haneshama. The dwelling place of the living and the soul, hu balev, is in the heart. So just like a human, the heart is the central part. That's where the whole life is. The Torah is that heart. Now, the life is the body. What's the heart? V'sham ikar horotel, misham mitpashet al shar guf, means from the heart, the blood and the life goes to the whole body. V'chein inyan haTorah ikara b'Eretz Yisrael. The Torah, if that's the life, where's the heart of that life? Eretz Yisrael. If the heart of the life of a person, that's his heart, the heart of the life, the spiritual life, the Torah, is Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is the heart. From there, everything comes out. It's a beautiful mashal. Basically saying here is that you can't live without Torah, you can't live without Eretz Yisrael. Now, I hope I understand that just like we said that you can't get Eretz Yisrael without keeping the Torah, Torah, true place is only in Eretz Yisrael. True, you could be a Shomer Shabbos, God-fearing Jew in Chutz La'aretz. But the famous Ramban in Achreimot says that the Ikar Torah is kept only in Eretz Yisrael. So it's a dual relationship here. Just like we need the Torah to enter Eretz Yisrael needs the Torah here. Torah in Chutz La'aretz is, of course, but am I right? Here is where the main Torah is kept. Mike asked me, when giving the title to the shir, things that we've learned or still can learn today after these 2 years. So I know there's a lot of discussion and fighting unfortunately, arguments regarding a lot of things. But I think one thing that we could all agree upon, and this is maybe where the mistake is, that some people think that not everyone agrees upon, but I'm talking more or less the religious communities, whether religious Zionists or whatever, is that Torah is, of course, it's a central part of this whole story here. And without the Torah, we wouldn't have Eretz Yisrael. And we value the Torah. And I don't think there's anyone that doesn't agree with that. The value of the Torah here in Eretz Yisrael. If you want to look where maybe the argument is okay, afterwards, okay, what do you have to do together with the Torah? There's a lot of the communities believe in what we call Safra v'Saifa, the book and the sword, the hand, the Torah together with the fighting. And those that don't exactly agree with that. I am convinced that since the war, now forget about among ourselves, the arguments, the drafting, the army. But I'm saying something else. I don't look at that. That's unfortunate what's happening there. I'm not going to go into this now, my personal feelings. But I am sure, and I'm convinced, from what I've seen, from what I've heard, they try to hide it from us. When I say they, the media, because it a little bit messes up their agenda, that since the war started, the amount of people who have come closer to Torah and realize what we said tonight is just growing and growing. This war has caused people to understand that you need the Torah to be here. They might not call it Torah yet, they'll call it values, okay? It doesn't matter. Kiruv is, you have to go slowly. But I am sure, I'm convinced, and that's why I wake up every morning, I'm even more optimistic, because I see that we're going in the right way. That more and more people today believe that this is what is the right thing. That you need to have Torah here in Eretz Yisrael. You cannot have this land without Torah. Now, yeah, of course, there are those that still don't believe that. It'll take time. But the fact that more and more people are believing this, it's just unbelievable. That just, first of all, it proves that we're going in the right direction towards the Geula. Really. I mean, you can't deny that. But I really believe that. I really think what we said tonight about the Torah being an essential part of Eretz Yisrael, it doesn't matter if they wear kippahs or not. Okay? They've seen things from just the fighting side by side with religious Zionists, with religious people, okay, in the army. They've seen what we are. They've seen what we believe in. They understand now that this Torah is, this is it. This is what it's all about. Like just a small example, at the beginning of the war, all of a sudden, suddenly you have these totally non-religious people start wearing tzitzis. Without, the first time I saw it, I remember where I was even. I was in State Road. We weren't back yet. The yeshiva was still not in State Road yet, but we used to go back. And I remember the army, the Miluim guys, and the yeshiva, and I see one guy wearing tzitzis, no yarmulke. So I thought his yarmulke fell off. I'm about to run over, and I said, "Wait a minute, no. This is what I've been reading about. That's 2 years ago. Okay, how they started because they don't understand fully but they understand that there's something here. They understand that there's something that about this whole idea of a higher good, of believing in something which directs us. Because, like, what is Torah? People always say Torah, the word Torah, directing, leading, showing the way. That's what Torah is. See, the rest of the world, they have chokhmah. There's also a midrash that says chokhmah. They have a lot of chokhmah. They have a lot of wisdom. Torah only, we have Torah, because we're the only wisdom that teaches us and shows us how to live our lives. No other people have in their wisdoms how to lead their lives. The Torah for us shows us how to live our lives in every aspect of the way. And I think it's important to understand that we are going the right way. And it could be, again, even if you hear differently, I personally feel that way. And when you see the sources and you understand that this is the way it has to be, that if we want to stay here and we want to have a right to the land, our answer to them is, this is our land based on the Torah. So, of course, we have a way to go. I'm not saying right now, listen, Rav Kook spoke about this a lot, this idea. You can't just force everything upon and all of a sudden make what we call a medina talacha, that everything that becomes that. But slowly but surely, we're there. We're at the right way. This Shabbos, we're going to be Varchim HaChodesh, and this I'll end, and if there's any questions, I'll take. Chodesh Shvat. Now, Chodesh Shvat is a very important month, because Chodesh Shvat, we know, every month has, so Chodesh Shvat, everyone knows about Tu B'Shvat. Now, what's Tu B'Shvat? Tu B'Shvat is planting the trees. Okay, that's very nice. And it's important to plant trees. Okay, for sure. But what does planting a tree symbolize here in Eretz Yisrael? What it symbolizes is that you could take a tree, you could take the dirt, and with that dirt, it's not just dirt. In Eretz Yisrael, you elevate that dirt to something a lot more holy. Because we know you have the mitzvot, Hatuyot Ba'aretz, Trumot, Masrot, Orla. So you take the tree, the dirt that looks like the lowest of the lowest things. You see, no, even the dirt has some holiness, has potential, and you have to elevate. That's our job here, what to do. To elevate everything. To incorporate into what looks like something distant from Torah, to incorporate Torah into that. And like I said, slowly but surely, more and more people are coming closer and closer. It's the kiruv is happening. Baruch Hashem, even without it, no one's forcing anything upon anyone. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has strange ways, we don't understand. But I definitely have seen these last 2 years, that the war has caused more and more people to come closer, to realize that the chayim, that the true life is the life based on Torah values. And I think I could say that Mirat Hashem will get there quicker than we thought. And like we say in davening, all the wicked and all the evil will be erased. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will make sure of that. We see what's happening as we speak in different places in the world. And Mirat Hashem will be left with what we believe in. The nations will see that Yerushalayim, Ki Mitzion Teitzei Torah, that this is where everything is, that we are the chosen people. We have the Torah. They'll understand that eventually. And Mirat Hashem, things will just get better and better. So thank you very much.